the first question?
The first question is last time we talked about a little bit about going to school. Tell us about after you went through the first 4 grades that were together.
Well, I don't remember exactly when, but we had to ride a bus then to Mink Creek School. And so we'd walk up to the top of the lane and catch the bus. We had quite a little ways to walk to get to catch the bus. And then we went to school up in Mink Creek.
It was a different school than the one that had the 4 grades in it?
Oh, yeah.
What was it called?
Mink Creek School. And they had a store right across from the school and the church. The only store that was up there. And they sold penny candy and I don't know what else, but that's what we spent our pennies on.
How many grades were in that school?
I have no idea. Enough.
I mean, up to high school, or?
Yeah, I started high school up there.
Do you remember any of the teachers?
Yeah, I had Miss DeWinter and Mr. What's his name? He's buried up there by our cemetery plot. I can't think of his name now. I liked him. He was the kind of coach. I played basketball and
You played basketball?
one thing and another in gym. Yeah.
Huh. For a team or just in class?
Just in a class, I think, just girls. And we did have I forget what I was going to say. So it must not have been important.
So you said you spent penny candy at the store, or bought penny candy?
Did I guess what? It was wrapped up, twisted on each end, and you opened it up, and it had 2 or 3 pieces of candy in it. And
What did you do to get pennies?
I don't know.
Did you get an allowance?
I don't think so. Didn't know much about money in those days.
Did you have a best friend other than your family?
Yeah. Darlene Jepson and Donnice Crane. Donnice Crane I stayed with in Logan in an apartment for the first year I went to college.
Oh, how about that?
She was a good friend of mine. Darlene Jepson lived in our ward in Glencoe, and she and I were the same age, and we got along really good together.
Back then, you had Sunday school in the morning on Sunday,
Yes.
and then you went
home.
back to sacrament meeting later on.
Right. After we got the chores done and everything. Did I tell you we got to bring the sacrament bread home?
Yes.
And how good that was, bakery bread. My dad was in the bishopric for years. I don't know how long.
And then, do you remember graduating from high school?
Well, I graduated from Preston High School.
Oh, so when you
'Cause my
said
mother-
you started going to high school in Mink Creek?
Yeah. My mother got sick, and so we had 2 doctors, Arvid Cutler and Alan Cutler. Arvid Cutler delivered babies, and Alan Cutler was a surgeon. So they diagnosed my mother with gallbladder trouble. So we moved to Preston.
How old were you then?
I was just in high school, 2nd year of high school.
Okay.
So we sold our farm, I think, to Woodrow. I can't remember who we sold it to. And moved to Preston, there on First East. And my mother was operated on, and she was full of cancer. In those days, they didn't know anything about it, so they just sewed her back up, and she came home. 6 months later, she died.
Did you take care of her during that time?
Yeah, Thor and Norma had come, the war was on. Thor and Norma were home. Between them and Hazel and I and Dad.
Were they married yet?
Yeah, had Blaine and Pauline.
Was Les in the military?
She ruptured, she had her incision broke open, and when she'd eat anything, it'd. And so we got Kotex and just put there to absorb it and wrapped her up. And she knew she needed to have a bowel movement. You can't live without a bowel movement. She'd say, if Ivan will just carry me into the bathroom. And she was sick. I remember that.
Was Norma and Thora married back then?
Yeah.
And were their husbands in the military?
Paul was. I don't know where Les was.
Paul was in the Navy, wasn't he?
Yeah, I believe so. They came home because Thora had Blaine and Norma had Pauline, and they were the funniest little kids. But I liked little kids even then. I still do.
And so after 6 months, your mother passed away.
We gave her a bouquet of roses for Christmas, and she wouldn't let us throw them away. And of course, the roses died. She died sometime the last of January, but she didn't want us to throw those roses away. And the doctor said, wash all the sheets and everything in cold or in hot scalding water and hang them on the line and leave them out 2 or 3 days in the sunlight, because they didn't know if cancer was contagious, or they didn't know anything about cancer in those days. They didn't have treatment for it.
So was she in a lot of pain before she passed away,
She
I guess?
was.
Did they have any medicine for pain back then?
I don't remember ever giving her any medicine.
Wow.
I don't know.
What do you remember about the funeral?
But I remember I tried so hard not to cry for so long that my throat got sore, and it was terrible going through it. But
Do you remember the funeral?
took her up to Mint Creek to Preston. She was buried in Preston. I don't remember the funeral.
How did Grandpa take it?
Tough. It's hard on him. He couldn't, if he's taking a bath, he'd have to hand his garments out. Somebody turn these one sleeves inside out or something. He depended on Mother a lot.
So that was before you graduated from high school.
Yes.
What do you remember
Bishop
about?
Eberhart was the bishop. He was the bishop for years. He gave DeRay and our recommends. We went and interviewed with him to get our recommends to get married.
Okay, you graduated from high school. What do you remember about that?
I must have told you about that. I was home in bed with the measles.
No, I don't remember that. Tell
I
me.
said that was the saddest, sickest day of my life. I used to say that, but since then I've had a lot of sad, sick days. But Dad and Hazel got ready and went, and I stayed home in bed with a high fever and sick as heck. And I had bought a long formal, I can't remember if it was pink or blue, because I had 2 formals, long dresses in my life, and I can't remember which one was when I graduated from high school. But and that was my seminary and my high school graduation.
So you graduated from seminary.
Oh, you bet.
Did they have a separate seminary building?
Yes.
Did you graduate from Preston High?
Mm-hmm. In Preston Seminary. I don't know what it was called, but the building there separate, but right close on this same block as the school.
So you probably walked to school
Oh,
every day.
yes.
'Cause that's only, what, 2 or 3 blocks?
Yeah, right. And there was a store on the corner before we crossed the street and got to the school. Can't remember what the name of that store was, but there was a store there.
I remember that store. That's where I bought my penny candy. If you graduated from high school, do you remember any dating you did in high school, or any games you went to, football games or
Oh, I
otherwise?
went to one state football game, and I think we were playing for the state championship. We went on a bus to, I don't know where, Pocatello or someplace, and I never in such a loud place in my whole life. Everybody was screaming, and I don't know if we won or not. But that's when I was in my senior year, I think. But
Did they have a drill team or anything that you were on or anything?
No. I had good friends, Denise and Daphne Smith. They were twins. And Ramona Alverson had moved to Preston too, and she was a good friend of mine. She was from Mink Creek. And even after we both got married, we used to cook dinner for one another.
Did Dad went to that high school. Were you there at the same time?
No. He graduated and was in the Army. He got out of the Army. I don't remember how long he was in the Army now. He probably told you in his. But he and his friends, L.V. Merrill's son, Douglas Merrill and Alan Manning, were his best friends there in Preston, and they were going to my lad to the dances and everything, and he had his own car. And one day he come to the first ward, and they said, "Come here, DeRay, you're going to dance with her. Come here, Cleo, you're going to dance with him in the Golden Green Ball." I didn't know him, and he didn't know me. Or at least if we knew each other, we'd just seen him under the church. He was 4 and a half years older than I was. But we danced in the Golden Green Ball, went to Salt Lake to the Golden Green Ball when they had it in that big stadium. Danced to "Glow, Little Glowworm Glimmer, light the path above beyond, and take us on to love." And I guess we fell in love. But my dad had promised me Mother had died, see. And he had promised me Hazel went on a mission. If I'd stay home with him 1 year, he'd buy me a piano, give me piano lessons. And I wanted to play the piano and be a great pianist or whatever, so I did it. Stayed home by Dad and played the piano. But Luella Bowman was my teacher, and she said, "I did really well until I met that Crockett boy. And then I didn't do very well in the piano."
So he bought you a piano.
He did. A big upright, which could hardly fit in the front room, a second-hand one. But I remember it really well, and I was going to be a great piano player. But it didn't work out that way.
Could you play anything now?
No. I know where Middle C is, and that's all. But anyway, then DeRay wanted to marry me, and I said, "I've got to go to school." My dad said he'd pay all the schooling we wanted to go to. But when we quit and got married, then he wouldn't pay our schooling anymore. And I always thought I wanted to go to 1 year of college. So DeRay took me down every Friday night or every Sunday night and went to Logan after me and brought me home. But I remember I went with a guy, and I thought a lot of him, but he wasn't a member of the church, so I knew I couldn't marry him. And I'd practically gone steady with DeRay anyway, but his name was Calvin Bruce Scotland, and I thought, I'm going to name even when I marry DeRay and I ever have a son, I'm going to name him after this guy, because I quite liked him.
So my name should have been Calvin.
And the one dance, I don't know if it was one dance at the AC, that's what we called it, Logan. I had 4 guys ask me to go with them to the dance, but I said, "I'm sorry, I can't go. I'm going steady with DeRay Crockett." And Donnie, I can't remember if she went or not, but she said, "Well, I wished I'd have had that many days." I was waiting for DeRay, and he was waiting for me.
What do you remember about studying?
Oh, I had to read, and I took a novel class, 19th century novel class, and I couldn't see to read the book, so I had to go to the eye doctor to get a pair of glasses. I wore glasses when I was younger, about 8 years old, for 2 or 3 years. But then I just outgrew them, or I don't know how I got rid of them, but I didn't have them till I took that class in college. But I took Shakespeare, and I learned to be or not to be, that is the question, from Hamlet, and I learned Romeo and Juliet. I loved college. I took a New Testament class, and I swear that teacher was trying to get us not to be LDS. I guess he was just presenting the facts. I don't know now, but I thought, man, he's not teaching that what he should be teaching. And I was always going to investigate and look that up, but I took a New Testament class, learned all about Jesus.
Huh.
I must have taken a homemaking class, but I can't remember much about that. I remember Shakespeare, and I remember the good old days.
Yeah.
Donnie's and I had to walk up the hill to the college.
So you lived in an apartment.
Yeah, in a basement apartment.
How many of you?
Just Donnie's and I.
Oh.
Donnie's Crane. And I just went the 1 year, and then I came home and started embroidering on dish towels and making pillowcases.
So you weren't actually engaged to Dad then?
No, I hadn't got a diamond ring. But I wanted a solitaire. I just wanted one diamond. But I didn't go with him to pick it out, but he picked it out. And we went to, do you know where Deer Cliff Inn is?
I remember going there.
That was a very
Up on the Bear River, right?
romantic spot up there. You go east from Franklin up there a ways, and there's this Deer Cliff Inn, and that's where he proposed. Or was it? We went to Logan to see a pair of golden earrings, and I can't remember when he gave me the ring, whether it was then or up at Deer Cliff Inn. I think at Deer Cliff Inn he gave me a music box that was my birthday. And I think we went to Logan and saw that show, a pair of golden earrings, and he gave me the ring. But we had come down to the Persiana. I remember going to the Persiana. Do you remember that?
In Salt Lake City.
No, the Persiana was in Preston, but we used to go to dances there all the time. And then they turned that into a big doctor's complex. It was on that whole block there, the end of the block. We went to the Coconut Grove in Salt Lake. And I was thinking about the other night. I remember the green, long-sleeved, kind of a wool dress that buttoned down the front that I wore to that. And boy, I thought I was something to go to the Coconut Grove. Because that, I lived in Preston, and we didn't, when I lived in Mint Creek, I was fortunate to get to Preston. And Hazel and I remember seeing cigarettes for the first time, the word, and neither one of us knew how to pronounce it. We were that sheltered. And
So you're telling me that Dad was a dancer?
Yeah, we used to dance all the time.
I find that hard to believe.
In the Persiana. I find it hard to believe now, too, because they had a ward thing here, I guess, 20 years ago, and I had a picture of D-Ray and I over there, and I remember we were supposed to dance, but neither one of us knew it. We couldn't remember how to dance. But yeah, we used to dance. Every Saturday night. Went to the dance in the Persiana. That was up in Preston. And we did go to the Coconut Grove once before we got married.
I assume they had live bands back then.
He used to go to Malad with his friends, and dance with girls. And I don't know why he ever married me. I really don't. And I think back now. I had Hazel growing up. She did all my talking. We didn't have a telephone. We had to go up to Carver's to use a telephone up the top of the lane. And Hazel would always do the talking. And then when I married DeRay, he always did the talking. And I think that's why it's been hard on me to be a widow. Because I don't have anybody to do my talking.
Huh. Well, that's awesome. So, he proposed to you and you accepted?
Yep.
And how long were you engaged?
Well, it seems to me like the 21st of January we got engaged. I mean, we used to celebrate on the 21st every year for years.
But you were married on January 4th.
Yeah, got married on January the 4th in the Logan Temple. L. Ray Christiansen married us, and he made us promise to come back to that temple within a month, before we'd been married a month. Well, DeRay had these big plans to go to California on our honeymoon, and he didn't know if we'd be back. And I said, well, we have to be back because we promised President Christiansen. And I got so homesick down there meeting all his relatives that I said, DeRay, I want to go home. So we came home through a snowstorm. Our car was pushing the snow on the road. Now, you might not believe that, but that's the truth. And after we got to wherever we went, they had said that that road was completely snowed in.
What kind of car was that? Do you remember?
I remember the Pontiac he had. I think I've got a picture of that.
So you went to California.
Met Colby and Ilda. I had met them before. I was putting up peaches at Dad's place. He went to Brigham and got, I think, 3 or 4 bushels of peaches for me to can. He said if I'd put them up, I could have half of them to take with me when I got married. I put up 100 quarts of peaches in one day.
Wow.
Now, a lot of people won't believe that, but we had a coal stove downstairs, and we had a big boiler that held, I forget how many quarts, 10 or 12 quarts. And then right across the hall from the kitchen, we had the water heater, and I'd go in there and scald a whole bucket of peaches, and I put up 100 quarts of peaches.
Wow.
In one day. And I had a midriff on, this before I got married, and a hairnet on. And DeRay brings his relatives, Colby and Ilda, I think it was, to meet me. Had a blue midriff that had a skirt and a top. And then he knew Dave Lamro, who was one of his relatives. He had more relatives than anybody he would ever met. He had an airplane. I got my first airplane ride in that.
Well, you were in California.
No, I think I was in, I don't know where I was, but it was before we got married.
Hmm.
We didn't go to California till after we got married.
Did you leave right from the wedding to go to California?
Yes. And Hazel had to ride with us from Logan down to Norma's. She was staying at Norma's. Well, we stayed in the Hotel Utah, in the bridal suite.
Yeah.
We hung a sign on the door. And I had a long blue nightgown. And it was in January, so I had made a flowered long-sleeved flannel to wear out over that nightgown because it was. I knew I was going to be too cold. Oh, that was funny.
Did you have any kind of a reception?
Yes, we hung. I think I had 10 or 12 pairs of pillowcases embroidered and crocheted, and
you did.
I embroidered. I can't remember. I did some of the crocheting, but somebody helped me crochet because I didn't crochet very well. And I had 7 sets of dish towels, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday on. That made a set.
I remember those.
And I think I had 2 or 3 sets of. Oh, we hung them up in Dad's bedroom, the front bedroom, and everybody come and looked at your trousseau and give you a present. And it's called a trousseau tea. And I can't remember what we served, but we didn't have a reception. That's what they used to have in those days. sent out an invitation, and everybody in the ward, I guess, came. I can't remember.
Awesome. Awesome. So you come back from California. You need a place to live.
And guess where we lived?
Your dad's or his dad's?
His dad had that apartment house, but there wasn't an empty apartment, so we had to live in Dad's basement. until they got one of DeRay's dad's apartments got empty.
In the rock house, you mean?
Yeah,
I see.
Matthew Cowley's house.
Yeah.
And then we moved in downstairs, and I'd sold my in the rock house. And I had sold my piano, and so I had $200. And I bought carpet for that front room.
How about that? What
And
other furniture did you buy when you got married?
And DeRay worked in the store, making spud nuts. Told me if I'd marry him, I could have all the spud nuts and ice cream I could eat. He delivered ice cream for Casper Merrill, his uncle.
Yeah.
And man, we used to go delivering that to Malad and all those towns up around there, and I'd get home after cold. I don't know, I never had a heater in the dang car we drove, and I'd go, and sometimes my feet would be so cold I'd have to run hot water in the tub, and Hazel would wake up and she'd say, "Dad's been up here to see why you aren't home, and you're going to get it in the morning." And I thought, well, so I stayed up after midnight. I'm engaged after all. That was so funny. When I think of it, I hadn't thought of that before for a long time.
So you went with him delivering ice cream before you were even married?
Yeah.
That's funny.
We had quite a courtship.
Yep. Well, that's 27 minutes, so we'll stop there and start again.
Okay.